Welcome to Local Heroes, the podcast by the London Optimist, where we celebrate the people making a real difference in our city. From community leaders to charity champions, these are the stories of those shaping a better London. Join me, Daniel Tison, as we shine a light on the everyday heroes among us. Today I'm speaking with drug education charity founder Fiona Spargo-Mabbs. Last time we spoke was in May last year, when the Daniel Spargo-Mabbs Foundation was celebrating 10 years since its founding. And I was wondering what you and your charity have been up to since then.
Oh my goodness. So since last May, as we speak, there are three professional theatre companies touring our play. One in London, Wizard Theatre, one in the rest of England, that's Tired Up Theatre, and then our first tour in Northern Ireland. So we've got a Northern Ireland theatre company, Ever Unique Productions, and they're just over halfway through their tour. So I was in Northern Ireland on Tuesday. We had a showcase performance where we had some really key stakeholders there, and we had a community performance in the evening with loads of young people, actually, lots and lots of community youth groups and church youth groups, and so that's really exciting. That's our first dip of the toe in the water in Northern Ireland. We've also, since then, we've had the second phase of some government funding to evaluate our drug education programme. So we had phase one in 2023. So I think since we spoke last, we will have heard, because we only got notification last August. So we're now working with Middlesex University over a longer period of time. It's just 12 months still, but the first phase was just 6 months. So we're working with 12 really different schools across England. So 3 in London, 3 in Surrey, 6 in Cumbria in the northwest. One's a pupil referral unit. There's an independent school, a faith school, a grammar school. There's a seaside school and a rural school and an inner city school, so a real diversity of communities and young people and settings who are delivering all of the different elements of our drug education programme. So workshops for students and parents, webinars and training for staff, and the film of the play rather than the live play, because it just makes it more flexible and more affordable for the evaluation, and our lesson resources as well. So our drug education lessons, and that's for year 9 and year 10. So there's a 13 to 15-year-olds, because that's where you see the exposure to drugs really kind of step up, and people's drug experiences really step up as well. So that's a really critical time to step in and intervene. So that's really exciting. So that's going to come to an end. We've got to finish the delivery before Easter, and then they'll be working on the evaluation, kind of pulling together all the data in the summer. And we've got a team of health economists from Bangor University on that as well, to look at cost consequences, the cost benefits. It costs this much, but what does it save? If young people have had this programme, if their parents have been along to a webinar, if their staff have been trained, if they've used these brilliant resources that we've got, then what will that save in terms of looking at outcomes that can be really costly, not just to people's lives, but, this is a financial thing. So in terms of, hospital admissions or criminal justice system, or lost educational outcomes, lost employment outcomes. So that's really exciting. I was appointed, so you covered this very kindly, thank you.
Yes.
I was appointed to the government's advisory council for the misuse of drugs, which is an enormous privilege. So that's just as small as 28 people who are all kind of experts in different fields. So I bring expertise in drug education and prevention work with young people. So we had an induction meeting and a first full council meeting just a few weeks ago. The council not only gets asked by government to look at various issues, like, for example, the most recent thing the government's commissioned the council to do is to have a look at the harms of ketamine and consider whether increasing it from a class B to a class A substance would reduce some of those harms. So that will be really, really interesting. Those are probably the big things. And then alongside that, there's all, the work with schools keeps growing, work in Scotland's growing. obviously our home's in London, so that's where we're working most intensively. We've just had some really interesting, it's a work in just very, very much in its inception, but looking at doing some work with some academics at Bath University who've been working around spice vapes. So THC vapes that are actually spice, which is a synthetic cannabis, which can be very, very much stronger. And often young people particularly won't, and not many people would choose to use spice unless unless you're pretty desperate because it's quite cheap. But for most young people, I think they're getting THC, which is one of the chemicals in cannabis. But this is something that's been made in a lab. It's a lot cheaper. So a number of police forces are working with this team at Bath University already, who they've developed a device that can detect these, whether a substance is spice or something else. So we're looking at putting together a resource to do training for teachers in schools around how to spot what that might look like in terms of the device, but also what that might look like in terms of the effects that might have on a young person. But just always exploring different ways we can work with different people and emerging trends as well. So THC vapes is one that's has been being flagged up in schools by young people, but also teachers over the last kind of year, 18 months particularly. And then the other thing is nicotine pouches. That's something that was coming out of the survey that we run continuously with older teenagers. We've developed some resources around that. We've kind of got some input on that in our staff training sessions and resources for young people as well. So
a lot has happened.
Yeah. I could go on, but yeah.
And of course, your play, I Love You, Mum, I Promise I Won't Die, has recently had its 1,000th performance.
Yes,
Incredible number as well.
It's amazing. Yeah, and that's not just ones that we've taught, because it was published in 2017. So since then, it's kind of out there. Just, schools are studying it and performing it. And that's 1,000 licensed performances. But I think about 3/4 of those have been on our commissioned theatre and education tours. But the other quarter was schools, community youth theatres. It's a GCSE drama set text at the moment as well, which is amazing. So young people are studying it for their GCSE exams. Last summer that's another thing that's happened. So last summer was the first summer that year 11s were sitting exams, answering questions about Dan and the play and the staging and the story and the characters, and which is very bizarre because it's a true, it's our story. It's Dan's story, but what an amazing thing. I can't quite bear to watch it. I made myself a promise a few years ago, the last time I watched it, that I would never watch it again because it just destroys me. But I couldn't resist watching just a bit of the beginning of it because it's a new production and it's an Irish cast and a Northern Irish theatre company. So they've changed bits, like they've changed some of the dialect. Like they talk about in Ireland, they talk about crack, like, CRAIC. So like for fun. So they wouldn't say it's great fun. They'd say it's great crack or good crack or something. So they got things like that that they put in to just change it a bit. And they wouldn't say I don't know. In London, you might say these guys walking down the street. They'd say there's going to be a whole bunch of fellas going with us. So it's a little bit like that. Anyway, so I watched a bit of the beginning, but at the very beginning and the end of the play, we've got this. This really powerful symbol of the sycamore seed. It's powerful to us anyway. But so Dan's grave is under this massive sycamore tree, and the symbol of those seeds has become really important to us. The way they spin around all over the place, and then they can land miles away. Yeah. And right from the very start, when all we had was Dan's story and all these reporters knocking at the door, and we just talked and talked because we just wanted to warn other people, and we just said then, we just pray that every time we share Dan's story, it would travel and land, it would land somewhere and grow good things from this very bad thing. It was something that, when it was the first anniversary of his death, we had a little service at our church and we wrote these words down, and then Mark put them in the play. But so the play begins and ends with the characters, the actors playing Tim and Fiona saying, that where it lands, it would grow good things from this very bad thing. And it's just the play has just, yeah, it's such a powerful. It's got all over the place, you know. We don't even know. We know it's had 1,000 performances, but we don't know how many times. There'll be so many more times than that someone in a drama lesson has been studying it. Someone has done scenes of it for a GCSE exam, but also it could have been just in a drama lesson in year 9. You know, they've done some work with the monologues, or, you know, something like that. So we don't even know where that's got to. We do know it's got like to Australia and New Zealand and Canada and all sorts of places.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I love about your foundation, that it's managed to turn such a tragic moment like losing a loved one into a mission that is helping children and families across the country. That's something I've been trying to do myself with the London Optimist, looking at the bright side of things. But do you think a positive approach has also its place in drug education, or is it more effective to tell children and young people sad and scary stories about drug misuse?
No. Where there's been research done into what works in drug education, those shock tactics and scare tactics aren't effective. I mean, for some people, you know, some adults will say, "Oh, someone came to them, they told me this thing, and I would never touch drugs again." The people that lands with mostly are probably people that were never going to, you know, they're probably never going to do anything anyway. I'm sure you can never say never for anything, can you? But what you talk about has got to be, we've got to be realistic and we've got to be relevant. Most people that use drugs don't end up in intensive care and don't die. And obviously Dan's story is a worst case scenario, and we always frame it as a worst case scenario. But we talk about the fact that drugs can, and alcohol can and do, cause so many shades of harm and damage. But the good news is that's all completely avoidable, because there's always a choice, and it's always your choice. That is so much easier said than done. And we always kind of recognize that as well, that as a teenager, that is the hardest time of your life to manage decisions safely. But that's why drug education is so important, so that when you come to those decisions, you're armed with knowledge, with a really good understanding of what the effects and risks might be of whatever it is, but also that you've got those skills and strategies to manage those decisions more safely. And we also talk a lot about looking out for each other. You know, it's not just about the choices you make for yourself, it's the choices that you make that can help the people around you as well. We frame everything as positively as we can, while in the context of these things can do a lot of harm, and this is what that can look like. Drugs from an illegal source are ultimately fundamentally unpredictable, where you've got something that's been made outside regulation. You don't know what's in it, and you don't know how much, unless you can get that professionally tested. But alcohol, which is regulated and you know exactly what's in it, can also cause a whole load of harm. What we hope is that young people will go away better armed with information, better equipped with skills to make decisions safely, but also a really important part of our message and what we leave young people with is just how incredibly precious they are. They matter more than they can possibly imagine to more people than they can possibly imagine. It sounds odd to have a positive message about drugs. It's not that drugs are a positive thing, but we're all about equipping, empowering, supporting young people to make safer choices about drugs.
Yeah, totally. I suppose that quite often young people fall into these situations because they're dealing with some obstacles or challenges in life or unpleasant things. And I was just wondering if you could tell me perhaps what helps you to deal with challenges in life and cope with negative feelings, because you're like example for some people, I would say.
That's a good question. I mean, I think certainly in terms of losing Dan, which is a pretty challenging thing, being able to do something good with that has been enormously helpful for me. I think I've always been somebody that quite likes, you know, as soon as something's difficult, my head, I shouldn't say that because sometimes I just go, oh, it's just so awful. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I do tend to get quite quickly to, okay, so what can we do? How can we fix this? And also, I was brought up to always acknowledge, look for the good in every situation. And there is always something, and the good in every person actually as well. My mum used to bang on about this, and sometimes it just got really annoying, but it's a really good way to try and live your life, because there is always good in that. You can always find something good in every situation, however awful it is, or something good that can be brought from it, some good that it can do, even if in itself, like Dan dying, is just an awful thing.
Mm-hmm.
But even in that, there were so many things to be thankful for. How blessed were we to have Dan in our lives for all of that time? He was just such an incredible gift to us for 16 years and 7 months and a few more days.
Wow.
And it was such a blessing that we were able to have time with him before he died. He was unconscious and he was on life support, and it was awful. But he could have been dead before we knew, and we had got that time. We had so much incredible support from friends and family. Something awful happens and you can see how much gold there can be in people, how much generosity, how much kindness, and how much depth of care and love. And I know that that's not something that everyone can do. And some people, especially if you're struggling with your mental health, it's not always easy to see anything other than the awfulness in everything. But there is always something, and there is always good in everybody as well. There's nobody that's totally. Sometimes you've got to look a bit harder, but you'll always find what you look for. If you're looking for something to be worried about or upset about or cross about or to criticize particularly, you'll find it. But if you look for something to be thankful for, you'll find that as well.
That makes sense. Thank
Does
you.
that make sense?
Thank you for sharing this with me. It must have been difficult.
Yeah. I mean, certainly with Dan, but making that do as much good as it possibly could so that it's not just pointless.
Mm-hmm.
That drives me on every day, really. And just wanting nobody else to come to harm, because it doesn't need to happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and in terms of future plans and goals for your charity, what would you like to see?
I mean, our vision is that every young person in the UK has the drug education they need to manage those decisions about drugs safely. So we want to be able to keep growing what we can do, but we're never going to be able to reach everyone ourselves. So we want to do everything we can to work with other people that are doing that, and to influence change in policy and in practice, and to build the evidence base so we've got a better understanding of how drug education can be done well. We want to see what's going to happen in Northern Ireland. It's been an incredible response to the play, and lots of interest in getting that back again at the end of this. We've just got a short little tour. It finishes next week. And looking at how our team needs to grow. We've got such an incredible team, but we're still tiny. We've got 9 staff.
And you've grown so much.
7 or 8 drug educators. Yeah, we've grown grown from nothing to this. The plan is we keep growing and keep going, and keep finding the funding to enable us to do that.
Of course. Sounds good. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that.
Thank you so much. And you as well. I think it's brilliant what you're doing. A friend sent me for my birthday a few years ago, there was I don't know if it's still going, but it was a sort of newspaper-y thing called Happy News. And that's exactly what that was. It was just lots of happy stories. I thought that's such a lovely thing. So yeah, go well. I think it's brilliant what you're doing. There's too much bad news.
No, it was really, really interesting and really nice listening to you. I've learned a lot about your charity and what you do, and it was very inspiring as well. Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Well, it's good to see you again. Take care.
You too. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.